In the heart of Ontario, where serene lakes mirror the sky and dense forests whisper secrets, a chilling tale of deceit and betrayal unfolded. A true crime story that would leave an indelible mark on the community. This is the gripping narrative of Lily Thompson, a vibrant, independent young woman whose search for love led her down a treacherous path into the dark underbelly of online dating. As she navigated the digital world, hoping to find companionship and connection, Lily unknowingly caught the attention of Andrew Pierce, an ex-convict with a carefully crafted facade. Using charm and deception, Andrew spun a web of lies that would ensnare Lily, leading her to believe she had found the man of her dreams. But the reality was far more sinister. Join us as we delve into this chilling true crime documentary, exploring the shadows that lurked behind the picturesque facade of Ontario. Through interviews, expert analysis, and first-hand accounts, we will uncover the complexities of Lily's life, the web of lies spun by her killer, and the community's fight for justice in the aftermath of a tragedy that changed everything. This is a story of resilience, heartbreak, and the urgent need for vigilance in a world where danger often hides behind a screen. Lily Rivers adjusted her glasses, scanning her computer screen as a notification from Perfect Connections flashed in the corner. She sighed, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Despite her success as a young, self-made entrepreneur, her personal life felt like a blank slate. Surrounded by designer furniture, the spacious city apartment she called home echoed with emptiness. Friends and family joked about her unattainable standards, but she wanted something real, someone who'd love her beyond her wealth and accomplishments. Curiosity and a touch of loneliness had led her to the website. What harm could a little harmless matchmaking do, she'd thought. But scrolling through profiles had mostly yielded disappointment. That was until she came across Andrew. Andrew's profile was straightforward, describing himself as a dedicated entrepreneur with a passion for life and adventure. His words struck a different tone. There was an allure in his simplicity, a subtle charm in his ambitions. His photographs showed a strong jawline and dark hair, with eyes that held an intensity Lily found captivating. She felt a thrill that made her fingers hover over the keyboard, unsure of how to initiate the conversation. But as she debated what to write, a message from Andrew appeared. "Hey Lily, your profile caught my eye, especially that line about finding someone who values connection over material things. It's rare to find someone who feels the same way." Lily's cheeks flushed. His approach was genuine, without the flashy undertone others had. After a moment, she replied, "Hi, Andrew. It's refreshing to meet someone who isn't all about impressing others. I'd love to hear more about your work and what drives you." Over the next few days, Lily and Andrew's connection deepened. He shared tales of his struggles building his business from scratch, the sacrifices he'd made, and the dreams he harbored. His stories resonated with her own journey, filled with long nights and hard-won victories. He was attentive, constantly asking about her day and always making her feel special. Their conversations spilled over from the website to late-night texts and video calls. Lily, who once carefully guarded her heart, found herself breaking down her walls, piece by piece. This could be real, she thought, staring at her screen one night. For the first time, she felt as though she'd met someone who saw the woman behind the success. But behind her computer screen, in a cramped apartment on the city's outskirts, a man named Daryl monitored each message with calculated intent. Lily saw him as Andrew, a charismatic go-getter, but Daryl's life was a stark contrast to the image he'd built. He was recently released from prison, and although his crimes had never made headlines, they were woven into the shadowed corners of his past. With mounting debts and no prospects, he knew the stakes. If he played his cards right, Lily's life could be his golden ticket. The messages continued, each one weaving Lily deeper into Andrew's world. He told her stories of his travels, his business deals, and the challenges of balancing his work with his love of adventure. Lily was enamored by his charisma and his seemingly boundless enthusiasm for life. Over time, her feelings for Andrew grew stronger, her trust unwavering. They spoke for hours, discussing everything from their favorite childhood memories to their dreams for the future. Andrew's voice was soothing, his words carefully chosen to make Lily feel as if she were the only person who truly understood him. He had a way of shifting the conversation to her, focusing on her passions, her thoughts, her feelings. He knew the power of making her feel special, unique, seen. As Lily shared more about her life, Andrew, or rather Daryl, listened carefully, taking mental notes. He learned about her thriving business, a luxury fashion brand she'd started from scratch and built into a success in under 5 years. He found out about her favorite places to unwind, her charity projects, even the days she'd typically spend working from home. Each fact became a part of his plan, a stepping stone toward the prize he sought, her wealth. Over time, Lily's life became increasingly entwined with Andrew's stories. He spoke of his dreams to start his own nonprofit, helping underprivileged kids get a better education. Lily admired his goals. They resonated with her own philanthropic vision, and she felt a genuine excitement for his plans. She was used to people looking up to her. But with Andrew, she felt as though she'd found a partner, an equal who inspired her. It wasn't long before Andrew began sharing parts of his business with Lily. He told her about a supposed investment opportunity, explaining that he was in the process of expanding his company. "It's a project I've wanted to work on for years," he confided one night, his voice dripping with sincerity. "But I need a bit more capital to make it happen. I don't want to ask, but with you, I feel like I can be honest. You've made me feel like I'm not alone in this." The admission seemed to trouble him, and Lily, feeling her heart ache for him, offered encouragement. She respected his drive and his passion. He was different from anyone she'd ever known. The idea of helping him felt like the natural next step, a way to support the man she was growing to love. But even as she entertained the thought of investing, she couldn't help but wonder if it was too soon. Andrew sensed her hesitation and backed off, a subtle move to ease her worries. "I know it's a lot to ask," he said, his tone soft and understanding. "I just want you to know that I'd never do anything to hurt you. If you're not comfortable, I completely understand." His patience and respect further melted Lily's defenses. Here was a man who not only cared for her, but also respected her boundaries. But while Lily was being drawn deeper into Andrew's allure, Daryl was scheming. Each conversation was a means to an end, each interaction a calculated move. The polished charm, the well-rehearsed stories of hardship and triumph were merely tools he wielded to unlock her trust. Over the next few weeks, Lily's feelings for Andrew blossomed. Every morning, she'd awaken to sweet messages waiting on her phone, filled with words of encouragement and affection. She found herself smiling more, feeling lighter and more alive than she had in years. When her friends noticed her change in mood, she explained that she had met someone special, though she hesitated to share too much. Andrew was hers, a secret source of joy and excitement she wanted to keep to herself. Meanwhile, Daryl, the real man behind Andrew's identity, was meticulously laying the groundwork for his scheme. He increased their video calls, charming her with romantic gestures, each one more elaborate than the last. He would send photos of himself supposedly at work, dressed in business attire and appearing every bit the successful entrepreneur he claimed to be. Lily couldn't know that these photos were taken months earlier, staged in borrowed offices to fabricate an illusion of success. As their connection deepened, Andrew began speaking about a future together. He painted vivid pictures of their life as a couple, traveling to places she'd always wanted to see, attending charity galas, building a family. He spoke of her beauty, her kindness, and how lucky he felt to have found someone as incredible as her. Lily felt seen, understood, and valued in a way she'd never experienced before. She wanted to believe every word he said. One evening, as they chatted on a video call, Andrew's face took on a serious expression. "Lily, I need to be honest with you about something," he began, his tone solemn. Lily's heart skipped a beat, unsure of what was coming. I've been thinking a lot about us. I've never met anyone like you, and I don't want to mess this up. I feel like we could build something beautiful together." His words sent a thrill through her, and she smiled, feeling the weight of his words. But Daryl wasn't finished. Leaning closer to the camera, he continued, "I know we haven't met in person yet, but I'm falling for you, Lily. I want to make this real. I want to be there with you, not just through a screen." Lily felt a lump in her throat, the emotion catching her by surprise. She had imagined this moment, but hearing him say it made her heart race. She took a shaky breath, her voice soft. "I feel the same way, Andrew. I'd love for us to be together." That night, Lily went to bed with her heart brimming with anticipation. Little did she know, she was exactly where Daryl wanted her to be, completely captivated and vulnerable. With her trust firmly in place, he began to move into the next phase of his plan, gaining access to her finances. In the days that followed, Lily felt more secure in her relationship with Andrew, believing she had finally found someone she could trust. The thought of meeting him in person had her counting down the days with anticipation. She threw herself into work, managing her fashion brand and her charity projects, but Andrew was never far from her thoughts. Meanwhile, Daryl moved behind the scenes, meticulously planning his next steps. His past was littered with small-time scams and a criminal record he'd managed to keep off the radar. It wasn't widely known, and he had avoided major trouble so far, slipping through legal cracks and using charm to mask his true nature. He knew the world of manipulation and deceit well, and he could sense the excitement in Lily's voice whenever they spoke. Her trust in him was solid, which made her assets ripe for the taking. One evening, Andrew introduced a new topic. They were video chatting, and his face appeared tense on the screen. "Lily," he began, "I feel like we've known each other forever. I don't want you to feel like I'm just here for your money, but I want us to build something together, something real, something that's both of ours." Lily listened intently, her heart thumping with excitement and trepidation. "What do you mean?" she asked, intrigued but cautious. Andrew sighed, as though he were burdened by the weight of his next words. "There's this investment I've been working on. It's the chance of a lifetime, but I don't want to do it alone. If you're willing, we could pool our resources, just enough to get it off the ground, and we could finally have something that's truly ours. I know it's a lot to ask, but I've never trusted anyone as much as I trust you, Lily." His words lingered in the air, sweet but tinged with hesitation. Lily was touched. She saw in Andrew a vulnerable, honest man who valued her input and wanted a future together. The idea of partnering on something meaningful thrilled her, and her defenses began to lower. She hesitated for a moment, thinking of her hard-earned savings and all she'd built alone. But love and trust can be blinding, and she wanted to prove to him that her faith in him was unwavering. "Andrew," she said softly, "I trust you too. I want to support you, whatever you need. Just tell me what I can do." The smile that spread across his face was subtle, controlled. He couldn't risk revealing the triumph he felt. But inside, Daryl was ecstatic. He knew he had her. In the coming days, Lily transferred a substantial sum into a shared account, one she believed was solely for the investment they'd discussed. As Daryl carefully emptied portions of the account, siphoning the money into hidden offshore accounts, he worked to maintain the illusion of progress. He sent her messages detailing the project's development, including photos, fake financial reports, and updates that kept her excited and engaged. Yet, despite Daryl's careful orchestration, one man became aware of Lily's new relationship and the slight changes in her life. Jordan, her trusted delivery man. Jordan had been delivering packages to Lily's apartment for years, growing familiar with her habits and routines. He noticed she seemed preoccupied lately, her focus drifting as if something were weighing on her mind. At first he thought she was simply busy with work, but over time he picked up on her distracted expressions and the occasional sighs that hinted at worry. One day, as he handed her a package, Jordan noticed her distracted smile and felt compelled to ask, "Everything okay, Miss Rivers?" Lily laughed softly, brushing it off. "Oh yes, just a little bit of excitement, I guess. I've met someone." Jordan raised his brows, intrigued. "Well, that's good, right?" She nodded, her cheeks flushed, though a trace of hesitation flickered in her eyes. "Yes, I think it is." Jordan had a knack for reading people, and he sensed something was off. Over the next few weeks, he observed her more closely, picking up on small details. Her phone calls, the occasional look of worry, the way her smile seemed more forced than before. Something wasn't right. In the background, Daryl continued siphoning her funds, using the illusion of love and commitment to draw Lily further into his web. But Jordan's growing suspicion meant that Daryl's carefully constructed plan was beginning to encounter an unforeseen problem. Lily's excitement grew with each passing day. After weeks of texting, video calls, and shared dreams, Andrew proposed they finally meet in person. They arranged to meet in a charming coastal town just a few hours' drive away, a place where Lily could escape the bustle of the city and focus on him entirely. She spent hours planning her outfit, imagining the moment she'd finally be face to face with the man who had captivated her heart. Andrew had made the meeting sound perfect. They would spend a weekend together, relaxing by the sea, exploring quaint shops, and talking about the future. But as she packed her bags, Lily couldn't shake a small, nagging worry. Part of her felt vulnerable, giving so much of herself so quickly. However, every time she spoke with Andrew, her fears melted away. His words reassured her, quieted her doubts, and gave her a sense of certainty. As Lily prepared for her trip, Jordan noticed her absence from the usual weekend routine. She hadn't been home to receive her package delivery, something that almost never happened. He felt a gnawing unease about her new relationship. Something about it seemed unnatural. He couldn't explain it, but after years of working closely with her, he knew her patterns, her expressions, even her silences. Unable to shake the feeling, Jordan decided to search online. He wondered if there might be any signs of fraud related to dating websites or similar scams. The search revealed story after story of people who had fallen victim to romance scams, where con artists preyed on wealthy individuals, enticing them with sweet words before ultimately draining their bank accounts. His heart sank as he read about victims who lost everything, all because they trusted someone who didn't exist. Jordan decided he'd ask her more directly the next time he saw her. He'd seen too much go wrong in these situations, and he cared about Lily too much to stand idly by. Meanwhile, Lily arrived at the seaside town, her heart racing as she anticipated their first meeting. She sat in a cafe by the pier, waiting for Andrew. She checked her phone every few minutes, her excitement mingling with nervousness. After 15 minutes passed, she started to worry. Had something happened to him? Was he delayed? Just as she was about to text him, she received a message. "I'm so sorry, Lily. Something came up with the business, and I couldn't make it. I wanted so much to be there with you, but I'll make it up to you." I promise. Lily's disappointment was intense, but his words softened the blow. He was still there in spirit, she told herself. Maybe this was just a small setback, something they'd overcome together. Andrew apologized profusely, telling her he'd make up for it with an even better getaway soon. But beneath her forgiveness, a faint sense of doubt lingered. Why was it always something with the business? Why did he always seem just out of reach? She pushed these thoughts aside, determined to trust him. However, she began to wonder if she had given too much, too soon. As she made her way back to the city, an uneasy feeling settled over her. Little did she know, back home, her delivery man Jordan was preparing to confront her, armed with the information he'd uncovered about online dating scams. When Lily returned from her disappointing weekend, she buried herself in work, trying to shake off her growing doubts. The idea that her relationship with Andrew might not be what it seemed was too painful to confront directly. She tried to rationalize his absence, convincing herself that every relationship had its rough patches. One afternoon, as she signed for a delivery from Jordan, he gave her a curious look, one that made her uncomfortable. "Are you okay, Miss Rivers?" Jordan asked gently, his voice filled with genuine concern. Lily hesitated, her mind replaying the weekend. Yes, just a bit tired. It's been a long few days. Jordan nodded, his expression still tense. I don't mean to pry, but I've noticed you've seemed a little off lately, and I know it's not my place, but it's just that I've been reading about these online dating scams, and I thought maybe you should be careful. People can pretend to be anything online. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She felt a flash of defensiveness, quickly followed by uncertainty. Thank you, Jordan, but Andrew is different. He's been nothing but kind to me. Jordan looked at her, his concern evident. I understand. I just thought you should know. Sometimes people with bad intentions can be very convincing. That night, Jordan's words played on repeat in Lily's mind. She felt a conflict brewing within her, a deep loyalty to Andrew, yet an uneasy feeling that perhaps Jordan had a point. Deciding she needed answers, she messaged Andrew, hoping for reassurance. She waited anxiously for his reply, scrolling through past messages, looking for any signs she might have missed. When Andrew finally replied, he showered her with apologies, insisting that their future mattered more to him than anything. He promised to make up for the missed weekend and suggested a second meeting, one where he could finally explain everything. Lily's doubts eased, but they didn't fully vanish. Over the next few days, Andrew, sensing her growing hesitation, turned up the charm. He called more often, made romantic gestures, and spoke about moving closer to her city. Each message was designed to keep her emotions high and her doubts at bay. But a part of Lily couldn't help noticing that while Andrew spoke of future plans, there was still no real action behind his words. And, as much as she wanted to trust him, Jordan's warning had taken root. Driven by a mixture of love and suspicion, she decided to dig deeper. She researched his supposed business connections, but found little evidence of the companies he'd mentioned. An unease grew in her stomach as pieces of Andrew's story began to unravel. It was then she realized she needed help. The following day, she reached out to Jordan, asking him to come by when his shift ended. When he arrived, she confessed her worries, her voice barely above a whisper. I think maybe you're right. Something's not adding up, and I don't know what to do. Jordan offered to help, assuring her that he'd do whatever he could to protect her. They sat together, combing through messages and tracing what little information she had about Andrew. Their quiet investigation only solidified her doubts, and her heart felt like it was shattering with each new inconsistency they uncovered. As they pieced together the web of deceit, Lily's heartbreak began to morph into anger. She was a woman of power and means, and she wouldn't let herself be a victim without a fight. With each piece of evidence Jordan helped uncover, Lily's initial heartbreak turned into a resolve she hadn't felt before. She knew she couldn't continue letting this man manipulate her, but confronting Andrew directly carried risks. If he realized she'd caught on, he might vanish before she could expose him fully or recover any of the funds she'd already transferred. Jordan suggested they proceed cautiously, crafting a plan that would allow them to confirm his real identity and motives without tipping him off. After hours of brainstorming, they decided on a strategy. Lily would act as if she were still completely enamored, drawing him out by proposing a significant business investment for the two of them. This investment would serve as bait, forcing Andrew to meet in person to finalize their arrangements. Jordan, meanwhile, would be close by to ensure her safety and witness the confrontation. Lily reached out to Andrew with a new excitement in her messages, crafting her words carefully to re-establish his trust. She expressed regret for her recent hesitations and suggested they start fresh with a sizable investment, one that would serve as the foundation for their future together. She pitched it as the beginning of their shared empire, knowing the promise of money would be irresistible to him. When Andrew responded, his eagerness was palpable. He agreed to meet her in person, and they arranged to meet at an upscale hotel in the city, a place where Lily felt safe and where security would be available if things went south. On the day of the meeting, Lily dressed in her most professional attire, projecting the image of a strong, confident woman in control of her own life. She wanted to look as unbreakable as she felt. She informed the hotel staff discreetly about the situation, asking them to keep an eye out in case anything unusual happened. Jordan stayed nearby in the lobby, posing as an ordinary guest, but keeping a close watch on Lily's every move. When Andrew arrived, he wore a polished suit and carried a designer briefcase, exuding charm and sophistication. His smile was warm, his handshake firm, but Lily saw through the veneer. Her stomach churned as she observed the man she once adored, now realizing he was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. They sat down, and as Lily began outlining the investment, she could sense Andrew's greed barely contained beneath his pleasant facade. He listened intently, nodding and smiling as she described the false investment opportunity. Inwardly, she could feel her nerves building, but she kept her voice steady, determined to see this through. Suddenly, a figure approached them. Jordan, who had been watching from a distance, had noticed Andrew's unease and decided to join the table, bringing his calm presence to steady Lily and signal to Andrew that she wasn't alone. Andrew's expression faltered, his eyes darting between Lily and Jordan as he sensed something was off. Lily seized the moment, her voice turning cold as she looked Andrew directly in the eyes. "Andrew, if that's even your real name, I know everything. I know about the lies, the money you took, and the deceit. It's over." Andrew's face paled, but he quickly masked his surprise, adopting a defensive tone. "Lily, what are you talking about? You're being paranoid. I've never lied to you." She shook her head, her voice unwavering. "Enough with the games. I trusted you, and you tried to take advantage of that. But I'm done being your victim." As Andrew's facade crumbled, he abruptly stood up, attempting to walk away, but Jordan intervened, positioning himself between Andrew and the exit. "It's best you don't make a scene," he warned in a calm but firm voice. Cornered and exposed, Andrew cast one last venomous look at Lily. "You have no idea what you're doing. You think you're safe?" he hissed before making a swift exit, leaving Lily with a sense of both triumph and dread. Despite the encounter, Lily knew that Andrew might not give up easily. He had already shown he was capable of deceit, and now, with his plans thwarted, she feared what he might do next. Jordan promised to stay close, reassuring her that they'd keep her safe. But as they left the hotel, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was far from over. In the days following their confrontation, Lily tried to return to her regular life, but a sense of unease lingered. She hired security for her home and doubled down on digital precautions, locking down her finances and cutting off any remaining access Andrew might have had. Yet a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that she was still being watched. Andrew had vanished without a trace. Jordan and Lily kept a close watch on their surroundings, but the con artist was skilled at hiding. Lily realized he wouldn't let her expose him so easily. He was out there, likely planning his next move. Her nerves frayed as she imagined him plotting, watching her every move as he waited for the perfect moment to strike. One evening, Jordan dropped by her apartment after work, a habit they had developed for added security. Lily welcomed the companionship. His presence made her feel safer, less isolated in her fear. They discussed potential ways to report Andrew's con to the authorities, but they both knew their case would need more concrete evidence to pin him down. Just as Jordan was about to leave, Lily's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and a chill ran down her spine. It was an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Lily." Andrew's smooth voice whispered through the phone, sending a wave of dread through her. "Andrew," she replied, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "It's over. Stay away from me." He chuckled softly, the sound dripping with menace. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You've only made this more interesting." The line went dead, but the chilling tone of his words echoed in her mind. Jordan, who had overheard the exchange, immediately looked to her, his concern deepening. "Lily, he's not going to give up easily. We need to make sure every precaution is in place. I'll stay over tonight if you need me to," he offered, his voice calm but edged with urgency. She nodded, grateful for his support. That night, as Jordan slept in the guest room. Lily barely closed her eyes. Every noise seemed amplified, every shadow a potential threat. She knew Andrew's warning was no idle threat. He was capable of anything. Over the next week, she continued her routine but remained vigilant. She informed her building's security team and reported the harassment to the authorities, but with no concrete evidence of his whereabouts, there was little they could do. One evening, just as Lily was beginning to believe things might calm down, she heard a loud knock on her door. She froze, a sense of dread filling her. Jordan, who had been on a delivery route but was planning to visit afterward, had mentioned nothing about coming over this early. She looked through the peephole and saw a man in a delivery uniform holding a package. Something didn't feel right. Her mind raced. She hadn't ordered anything, and the man looked unfamiliar. Panic surged as she remembered Andrew's threat. She quickly dialed Jordan, hoping he would answer. "Jordan, there's someone at the door. He says he has a delivery, but I don't recognize him," she whispered urgently. "Don't open it, Lily," he replied immediately, his voice steadying her. "I'm on my way. Just hang tight." She watched from a distance as the man knocked a few more times before leaving. Her heart pounded, relief and fear mingling as she waited for Jordan to arrive. When he finally reached her apartment, she recounted the experience, her hands still shaking. But just as she was beginning to calm down, Jordan's face darkened. "Lily, I need you to hear this," he said, pulling out his phone. He showed her a security alert message he'd received from his own delivery company. One of their drivers, a seasoned employee, had been found dead in his truck earlier that evening, the victim of an apparent attack. Lily's blood ran cold as she realized the implications. Andrew had struck again, eliminating someone who posed no threat, but simply served as a pawn in his twisted game. And the message was clear. Andrew was willing to go to any length to get what he wanted. The horrifying news of the murdered delivery driver shook Lily and Jordan to the core. It was a stark reminder of just how dangerous Andrew truly was, and how determined he was to maintain control through any means necessary. They knew he wouldn't stop until he had either reclaimed his hold over Lily or silenced her entirely. With every passing hour, the stakes grew higher, and time was running out. Determined to fight back, Lily and Jordan ramped up their investigation. Jordan contacted a detective he knew through his job, explaining the situation and the terrifying escalation with Andrew. Detective Monica Harris, a seasoned investigator with experience in cyber fraud and stalking cases, listened intently as Lily recounted the past few months, her voice quivering with both fear and resolve. "We need as much evidence as possible to pin him down," Detective Harris instructed, her tone resolute. "If he's truly as dangerous as he seems, we need to stop him before he gets another chance to hurt anyone else." Lily handed over every message, transaction, and document she'd received from Andrew, while Jordan shared what they'd uncovered about his fabricated businesses and likely aliases. They knew it would take time for Harris to connect all the dots, but for the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope. With the authorities involved, Andrew's control was slipping, and they had a chance to turn the tables. As days passed, Lily's life became a delicate dance between caution and normalcy. She avoided going out alone, changed her phone number, and hired extra security for her apartment building. Every noise, every shadow outside her window filled her with paranoia. But she knew she couldn't let Andrew's psychological terror break her down. Jordan continued to support her, determined not to let his friend face this alone. His vigilance only grew with each passing day, fueled by both friendship and a new, deeper resolve to protect her at all costs. But his concerns grew as well. One evening, as they were sorting through her files, Jordan spoke up. "Lily, I've been thinking, what if he has an accomplice? Someone helping him track you?" he asked, his brows furrowed in thought. Lily's eyes widened. The idea that Andrew might not be acting alone chilled her to the bone. She had felt safe with Jordan, but the idea of an unseen accomplice made her realize just how far Andrew might be willing to go. Meanwhile, Detective Harris was making progress. Through intense digital tracing, she uncovered several of Andrew's past scams. He'd used multiple aliases, each with a similar pattern: befriending wealthy women, gaining their trust, and slowly bleeding them dry before vanishing. The detective was closing in, but she knew catching Andrew in the act would be key. Then, late one night, Lily received a message from an unknown number. It was a video. With trembling hands, she opened it, her heart hammering as she watched. The video showed her in her apartment, taken from a nearby rooftop. The chilling caption read, "Don't think I've forgotten about you. We have unfinished business." Lily screamed, her phone slipping from her hands as the reality hit her. He was watching her. He knew her every move, even with the extra security in place. Jordan arrived just moments later, hearing her scream from outside the apartment. She replayed the video for him, and they sat in stunned silence, realizing just how deeply Andrew had infiltrated her life. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as if no place was safe. With Detective Harris on the case and the disturbing video as new evidence, they intensified their efforts to draw Andrew out of the shadows. They devised a new plan, a last-ditch investment offer that would lure him into the open, where Detective Harris and her team could apprehend him in the act. The bait was set, the meeting arranged at a public park, with officers strategically positioned to make an arrest. It was risky, but they knew it might be their only chance. As the hours ticked down to the meeting, Lily's anxiety mounted. She kept her mind focused on the goal, determined not to let fear take hold. But as she took her position at the park bench, the question loomed. Had they truly outsmarted Andrew, or was he one step ahead, watching them even now? The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the park as Lily sat on the bench, her heart racing. She glanced at her watch, knowing that every second felt like an eternity. Jordan was nearby, his eyes scanning the park for any signs of trouble. Hidden behind a tree, Detective Harris and her team awaited the arrival of Andrew, ready to act at a moment's notice. Lily took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She had practiced her lines, rehearsing what she would say to Andrew when he arrived. This was her chance to regain control and confront the man who had turned her life upside down. Yet the memory of the video, of Andrew's chilling threats, lingered in her mind, making her feel small and vulnerable. A few moments later, she spotted him, Andrew, in another designer outfit that only reinforced the image he'd crafted. He approached with a confident swagger, a smile plastered across his face, but Lily could see the darkness lurking behind his eyes. "Lily," he greeted her, his voice smooth, "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up." "Of course I'm here, Andrew," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. "You've made it quite clear how much you wanted to discuss our investment." His smile widened, but there was an unsettling edge to it. "I knew you'd see things my way eventually. You can't just walk away from what we had. We're meant to be partners." Lily felt her anger rising. "Partners? You mean you wanted to con me out of my money? I know everything, Andrew. I know who you really are and what you've done." His expression shifted, and for a moment she saw a flash of the man behind the mask. He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "You shouldn't have done that, Lily. You don't know the kind of people you're dealing with. You think I'm the only one who can hurt you?" In that moment, Lily's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "You're not going to intimidate me anymore. This ends here." Just as Andrew's facade began to crumble, Lily noticed movement from the corner of her eye. Jordan subtly gestured towards Detective Harris and her team, who were positioned a few yards away, ready to spring into action. She took a deep breath, knowing they were on the cusp of a confrontation that could change everything. "Andrew," she called out, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "I've got the police on standby. They know everything, and they'll be here any second. You're done running." His eyes narrowed, and she could see the gears turning in his mind. "You think you can just ruin my life and walk away? That's cute, but you're mistaken." Before she could react, he turned to flee, his instincts kicking in. But it was too late. The team sprang into action, surrounding him and tackling him to the ground. Andrew let out a surprised shout as they restrained him, cuffing his hands behind his back. Lily felt a rush of adrenaline and relief wash over her as Detective Harris approached. "Good work, Lily. You played your part perfectly." Andrew struggled against the officers, his facade completely shattered. "You'll regret this, Lily. I'll make sure you pay for what you've done," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "Get him out of here," Detective Harris ordered, leading Andrew away. As he continued to shout threats, as he was taken into custody, the weight of the past few months finally began to lift from Lily's shoulders. She turned to Jordan, who was beaming with pride. "You did it," he said, pulling her into a quick hug. "You faced him and didn't back down." Tears brimmed in her eyes, not just from relief, but from the realization that she had reclaimed her life. "I couldn't have done it without you, Jordan. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." As the police led Andrew away, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. While this was a significant victory, it was just the beginning. Andrew had left a trail of destruction in his wake, and they knew the battle against his deceit wouldn't end with his arrest. The investigation would likely take time, and Lily had to confront the emotional aftermath of being conned. But as she walked away from the scene, hand in hand with Jordan, she felt a newfound strength. The darkness that had clouded her life for so long was beginning to lift, and for the first time in months, she dared to believe in a brighter future. In the weeks that followed Andrew's arrest, Lily found herself navigating an emotional landscape filled with both relief and lingering fear. The sense of safety she had yearned for was slowly returning, but echoes of the past still haunted her. Although Andrew was behind bars, the trauma he inflicted lingered in her thoughts, making it hard to trust herself or anyone else. Detective Harris kept Lily updated on Andrew's case, sharing that he would face multiple charges, including fraud, stalking, and harassment. But Lily knew this wasn't just about the legal ramifications. It was about reclaiming her sense of self. She needed to confront the damage done, not just to her finances, but to her spirit. Determined to find closure, she sought therapy. Her first session was nerve-wracking, but as she spoke about her experiences, she began to peel away the layers of fear and shame that had wrapped around her for too long. "You're not alone in this, Lily," her therapist, Dr. Lawson, assured her gently. "What happened to you doesn't define you." With each session, Lily found herself unraveling the knots of anxiety that had plagued her. She learned coping mechanisms to manage her fear, ways to rebuild her self-esteem, and strategies to reclaim her power. But therapy wasn't a quick fix. It was a journey, and she had to commit to the process. One evening, feeling brave, she invited Jordan over for a casual dinner. As they laughed and shared stories from their childhood, Lily felt a sense of normalcy creeping back into her life, but just as they settled into easy conversation, her phone buzzed with an alert. A news notification flashed across the screen. "Local woman found dead in suspected murder-suicide." Lily's heart sank as she read the article. The victim had been a woman from a nearby town, someone who had been involved in a similar online dating scam. The suspected perpetrator was a man who had been released from prison just weeks before. The chilling connection hit her hard. There were real consequences to the games Andrew had played. Jordan noticed her change in demeanor. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etched across his face. "It's just, I read about a woman who was killed. She was conned by someone just like Andrew, and it makes me realize how close I came to being in that position," Lily admitted, her voice trembling. Jordan moved closer, his expression serious. "You're safe now, Lily. Andrew can't hurt you anymore, but we can't ignore the reality that there are others like him out there. You have to be careful." His words struck a chord deep within her. As much as she wanted to leave Andrew behind, she also recognized the importance of advocacy for herself and others who had experienced similar trauma. Lily resolved that she wouldn't be a silent victim. She would speak out about her experience and help others navigate the dangers of online dating. With Jordan's encouragement, she began writing a blog detailing her story. She shared the red flags she had ignored, the emotional turmoil she had endured, and the importance of recognizing one's worth. As she published each post, she felt lighter, more liberated. Her words resonated with others, and she quickly gained a following of people who shared their own stories of deception and resilience. Meanwhile, Detective Harris continued to update her on the progress of Andrew's case. He had been remanded in custody, awaiting trial, and a hearing was scheduled for the coming weeks. The thought of seeing him again filled Lily with dread, but she was determined to face him. This was her final stand, a chance to reclaim her narrative once and for all. As the trial date approached, Lily found herself oscillating between excitement and fear. She started preparing herself for the courtroom, attending mock trials with Dr. Lawson to practice her testimony. Each session helped her build confidence and clarity in what she wanted to convey. On the day of the trial, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Lily sat among the other victims, her heart pounding as she waited for Andrew to enter. When he finally walked in, she felt a mix of anger and relief. This was the man who had tried to take everything from her, yet here he was, finally facing the consequences of his actions. As the proceedings unfolded, Lily listened intently as Detective Harris presented evidence, detailing the extent of Andrew's deceit. When it was her turn to testify, she took a deep breath, remembering the strength she had found in therapy and through her writing. She stood tall, recounting her experience with unwavering determination. "I thought I was safe," she began, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. "I was looking for love and trust, and instead I found a con artist who preyed on my vulnerability. But I refuse to let that define who I am. I'm here to tell my story, to warn others, and to reclaim my life." As she spoke, she could feel the support of those around her. Jordan sat in the back, a proud smile on his face. Detective Harris nodded in encouragement, and the other victims offered silent solidarity. Lily's testimony resonated deeply in the courtroom, and she could see the impact it had on the jury. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about raising awareness and bringing justice for all those who had suffered at Andrew's hands.